From WNIN News, this is the Friday Wrap. I'm John Gibson. On today's show, we welcome Sarah Lesh of the Evansville Courier and Press to talk about a lawsuit against Vanderburgh County after an inmate death at the county jail. John Martin of Evansville Living and Evansville Business will join us to talk tourism. We'll listen back to Tim Jagalow's story on the annual state of Vanderburgh County. Jevin Redmond will join us for the sports chat, and we'll run down the weekend notebook. The Friday Wrap is next on WNIN FM with support from Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations following the news from NPR. It's the Friday Wrap on WNIN FM. I'm John Gibson. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. Well, the mother of a Linville man who died in 2022 after being held in the Vanderburgh County Detention Center has filed suit against the county, claiming her son's death was caused by systemic failures at the jail. Joining me now is Sarah Lesh, who is covering the case for the Evansville Courier and Press. Sarah, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about, some basics here. What do we know about the time leading up to the death of 37-year-old Jacob Ziliak?
So Jacob Ziliak was arrested on a petition to revoke. So in this case, he had been arrested previously for possession of a syringe, which is a level 6 felony, and leaving the scene of an accident, which is a misdemeanor. And he had not shown up for a court date, according to Vanderburgh County court records, at which point his bond was going to be revoked, and he was arrested on that. And so at that point, he was taken into the Vanderburgh County Jail, taken through booking, which according to the lawsuit during that time, he already was complaining of some medical issues. Reportedly had asked if he could be taken to the hospital and was told no, according to the lawsuit. And then from there, he was placed into a cell, which was supposed to be an isolated cell, which would happen most of the time for a medical reason or something else, but mostly a medical reason in this instance. Right. And from there, he continued to sort of progressively get sicker, according to the lawsuit, before he was taken to the hospital and eventually died.
I see. Now, you say he was kept or was supposed to be kept in an isolated cell. No cellmate, but there was at least a cellmate at one time, right?
Yes. So he was initially put into an isolated cell. He had 100.4 fever and was complaining of stomach pains and things like that when he was booked on August 6th. And then on August 10th, so about 4 days, he spent totally by himself in the isolated cell. And then August 10th of 2022, another inmate at the jail was placed into the cell with him. According to the lawsuit, that person was placed in there because they had tested positive for COVID, which Ziliak had not tested positive for, which is noted in the suit, but they were placed in a cell together.
Now, why do we know why that would happen? Why you would put someone who has been reportedly, tested positive for COVID, why would you put them in a cell with another mate?
I don't have an answer for that. I think it is a question that the lawsuit is attempting to pose of he had not been tested nor had tested positive for COVID, and so they added someone in there with what we know as a society now are symptoms that travel quite easily, but that's something that it hasn't been answered at this point. The county will eventually file a response to the complaint within court records, and we'll follow up on that, but at this point they have not responded.
And again, this all happened in 2022. Now, at the time that Jacob Ziliak was in the Vanderburgh County Detention Center, he was on medical observation, right?
Yes, he was. So he was on medical observation, which would be, check-ins from medical staff. But in general, within state code, the jail is supposed to be checking on inmates about every hour. And in this case, according to the lawsuit, they found that over his period of time within the jail, staff missed a check-in on him about 62 times over the course of 10 days. And I should state, too, some of these things in the lawsuits, with him being in an isolated cell, he had a security camera that was on the top of the cell.
Right.
So the attorney has had access, the attorney for his estate and for his mother, who's filed the suit, has had access to the sound and the video from that. And a lot of that is used as direct testimony, quotes from things that he said during the time when he was in the cell and things like that they can see and hear via the video.
Sure. Now, the presence of a camera there, though, was that the type of surveillance camera in which folks can keep an eye on him without having to go there frequently?
Yes. So this would have been a video camera that would have connected to like the screens that they have within their watch areas.
The jail staff.
Yes, the
watch.
jail staff. So the one thing, though, with that is that state code, those 60-minute check-ins are supposed to be outside of just virtual surveillance. So, in a lot of instances, I would venture to say that that's because if someone's sleeping, laying, facing away from the camera, if they're having some sort of medical emergency, you may not necessarily be able to tell that from camera.
Right,
Whereas
right.
if you go and you actively try to speak to them and those sorts of things, you could probably find an issue much quicker.
Yeah. Well, do we know if Jacob Ziliak received any treatment while he was in the detention center?
Sure. So, according to the lawsuit, when he first came in and was complaining of issues, he was given Tylenol. And then let me get the date right for you here. On the 14th of August, so he'd been in there since the 6th, he was given Zofran for nausea and Loperamide for diarrhea. So he was still having the stomach issues, which was a large part of this. He wasn't eating, and when he did eat, according to the lawsuit, he would vomit it up immediately, and so he wasn't taking any nutrients from food at the time, is what they're alleging.
I see. And so I understand he spent about 10 days in the jail before he was moved to Deaconess Hospital, right?
Yes. So on the 14th, according to the lawsuit, a lot of things sort of came to a head. His cellmate at the time, who, according to the lawsuit, really became an advocate for him, was trying to get him attention from medical staff and really trying to communicate a lot of things that the suit alleges Ziliak could no longer do for himself. And so they really amped up that on the 14th. Ziliak had reportedly told his cellmate that he thought he was going to die, and they ended up taking him to the hospital via an ambulance that came to the jail to pick him up, at which point, according to the lawsuit, the EMT who was on scene said that there was already signs of sepsis and organ failure, and that he was intubated on the way to the hospital in the back of the ambulance.
I see. We're speaking with Sarah Lesh of the Evansville Courier and Press. You can see this story and her other reporting at courierpress.com. This is the Friday Wrap. I'm John Gibson. Well, so the story is, as far as we know, Sarah, you've shared a lot of details with us here. What basically are the key allegations in the lawsuit?
So the key allegations are that the jail did not have proper staffing for him to be getting the medical care that he reportedly needed. In this instance, one of the ways that they back that up is a member of the nursing staff came to take his vitals, the normal things you get at the doctor, so your blood pressure, temperature, things like that. And she was doing it through the door of his cell. And when Ziliak reportedly said that he needed to sit down, asked if he could do that during the testing, the nurse told him that there was no officer present, and so she had to do it through the door. She couldn't be in direct contact without the officer's supervision. Another instance is that they state that nurses were writing down vitals that they hadn't taken. So according to the video cameras that they reviewed. The attorney says that in some instances they would take his blood pressure and then also write down a temperature for him as well, which most people, of course, you can't take that from a blood pressure cuff. And so in other instances, they were putting the pulsometer to test his oxygen rates, and writing down things again, like his temperature. That wouldn't have been possible to tell from that. So those are current allegations that they were falsifying reports, whereas one of the major things for the lawsuit is that if they would have known he was running a high temperature, it would have possibly pointed them quicker to the fact that he was dealing with sepsis and organ failure.
And maybe got him to the hospital sooner.
Yes.
Well, any comment from Vanderburgh County on this?
So they did not comment, which is not it's not abnormal in this situation when there's an ongoing lawsuit. In this instance, I reached out to the county attorney, who is listed directly onto this case as being involved with it, and I didn't receive a response in this time. So I would imagine their response will come solely in the form of their filing in court records, which, again, the Courier will follow up on that, and we'll have something on what they respond with.
Coming sometime in the near future, I assume.
Yes.
What is Ziliak's mother seeking in this lawsuit?
So there's no set amount of damages that she's seeking. They are asking for attorney fees, things that it's taken for them to get the suit going, as well as compensatory damages that the judge would see fit. So I would imagine those specific numbers are going to come in internal discussions. A lot of times these do not go to any sort of trial or bench trial, anything like that. A lot of times they're settlements. But in this instance, a lot of time what these lawsuits do is they put it out in the public. And that is often a big impact for the families, making sure that people know who their loved ones were.
Yeah. Now, we were talking before we went on the air about lawsuits against the county and the city. You see them occasionally, of course. Are there other suits pending right now against Vanderburgh County, or is it been sort of slow in that area?
Well, there's always a suit pending. There's a lot of suits from inmates on their own behalf who are within the jail and are writing some sort of lawsuit for civil rights violations or things like that. There's usually something pending, especially with a large jail like Vanderburgh County, in terms of how full it is, not necessarily size. But in this instance, a big one for them right now, the jail and the county are actually not named in the lawsuit, but the sheriff's deputy, Hassan Hacker, who died during training, his wife has filed suit on behalf of his estate, and that's a pretty major one. He died during a training that was sponsored by the Southwestern Indiana, I can't remember the acronym at the moment for everybody, but it's the training for deputies
the
and
police academy.
Yes.
To put it in generic terms.
Yes. So that one is currently going on, and that one, of course, when it's an officer or deputy themselves, those are ones that are going to get a lot of attention too.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll certainly be following that as well. Well, Sarah, anything else to add that we haven't touched on here?
I think the only thing to add, which closes out the story that we have online too, is that Ziliak was loved by his family. He had a heart of gold, according to his obituary. So this is something where, they want people to know. They feel like something has happened that shouldn't have happened or could have been prevented. Within the lawsuit, it states that after he graduated high school, he was a North graduate, that he did struggle with substance abuse, but that he had a lot of clean times in his life as well. And he, back in 2022, unfortunately relapsed, which led to the charges and then him ending up in jail on a bond violation. But I think that those parts are important in the story to make sure that people know a full person versus just the dollar amount that his family might be seeking or getting in the future.
That is Sarah Lesh of the Evansville Courier and Press. You can read this story and all of her reporting at courierpress.com. As always, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, coming up on the Friday Wrap, we'll be talking to John Martin of Evansville Living and Evansville Business. He will be talking about some high-profile events that are keeping Evansville's tourism industry holding its own, at least in the first 6 months of this year. John will join us next on the Friday Wrap. I'm John Gibson. Hope you can stay with us.
As a public media fan, you probably are or have been a fan of PBS's Sesame Street at some point in your life. Chances are you know a kid right now who is a fan. Well, this Saturday at Kids Fest, WNIN gives you a chance to win a family fun pack to see Sesame Street live say hello when it comes to the Old National Events Plaza on October 16th. The fun pack includes 4 tickets and 4 meet and greet passes. So while you're at Kids Fest this Saturday, just stop by the WNIN membership booth and get registered for the drawing. See you soon.
WNIN listeners are civic leaders serving on nonprofit boards and committees, and they're engaged in the community. Hi, I'm Laura Porter, WNIN's underwriting account executive. Learn how your message can reach that valuable audience. Visit WNIN.org, click on the support tab, and then select corporate support. Or email me at lporter@wnin.org.
This week in This American Life. Ever since she was 11, Maj wanted one thing: study abroad in America. She heard from all these older kids, you have to do it.
You're partying every day. You're getting 5 Domino pizza boxes every day.
So she begins school in the U.S. And then a war starts back home. And a normal year of American high school is impossible.
In the mid-1940s, Bud Powell emerged as the leading pianist of the bebop movement, astonishing listeners and his fellow musicians with dazzling, high-speed improvisations of rhythmic and harmonic ingenuity. But the personal troubles that would dog him throughout his career were emerging as well. I'm David Brent Johnson, inviting you to join me and Powell biographer Peter Pullman for Time Flies, the life and music of Bud Powell, Part 1, this week on Nightlights.
Food From Here is back with a new season, and we kick it off in the kitchen of Arcademy in downtown Evansville, where the owners of Turntable are plating up their Thai chicken sliders and smash burgers. I'm Peggy Pirro. Join me for a conversation with Turntable owners Jeff Gott and DeAndre Wilson, and get a bonus update on their Teepee Park Community Kitchen project, Bedford Collab. Food From Here is brought to you by Swerka and More and their intergenerational community kitchen partnership with Young and Established. Support for WNIN comes from listeners like you and from Extend Group, equipping business owners and managers with leadership tools designed to shape a positive culture, foster communication, and empower teams to excel. Learn more at extendgroup.com.
It's the Friday Wrap on WNIN FM. I'm John Gibson. Good to have you along on this Friday. Well, some high-profile events have kept Evansville's tourism industry holding its own in the first 6 months of this year. That's according to reporting from our next guest, John Martin of Evansville Living. John, good to see you again.
Good to be back, John.
I appreciate the time. Thank you. Well, perhaps you can tell us how those tourism numbers look for the first half of 2024 here in the Evansville area.
Well, I can tell you that going into the reporting on this story, I wondered if events that Evansville has been fortunate enough to be the host of, such as the Path of Totality for the Eclipse,
yes,
and the Theater on Ice, and the State High School Wrestling Finals, which you might recall was held here because there was a conflict with the NBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis. We had some strokes of good luck to be able to have those events, and I wondered if the trio of those events had driven our visitation up for the first 6 months of the year. And it's not exactly, but what those events did do is it helped Evansville combat some national trends, which are not so hot, according to what, and this is all from Explore Evansville, but from what they say, nationally, the visitation in the top tourism markets, think Las Vegas, think New Orleans, think Nashville would be in that category, Denver. Right. Places like that are doing very well, but the secondary markets, which Evansville certainly would be in that category, are not doing quite as well. The spend there is not as strong. So, but the fact that Evansville was in the Path of Totality, the fact that we had some of these other high-profile events that we don't normally have on the calendar, enabled Evansville to kind of hang in and and mostly maintain what it had been doing from a tourism standpoint. The room occupancy in the city from January through June was 57%, and that was down roughly 1.5 points from last year. So pretty flat. On a more positive note, the average daily room rate was up about 6%. So, and that probably reflects the fact that during the eclipse, particularly during the eclipse, but maybe these other events also, hotel rooms were at a premium around here. So
and that makes the rates go up. Right?
Yes, correct.
Yes, indeed. So we're talking about hotel occupancy, which is often goes by the expression heads in beds.
Heads in beds.
And also hotel revenue. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Obviously, there was the innkeeper's tax involved, and that helps raise some revenue for the tourism industry, correct?
Well, whenever people stay in hotels, of course, there are taxes that go along with that. All of us who travel see that. You pay a tax to the local community. Evansville charges 8%. Vandenberg County charges 8%, and that revenue is used for a myriad of purposes, some of which are to promote just promotional campaigns for the region and for its destinations, for its attractions, also for capital projects that boost tourism in different ways, and also to maintain the old National Events Plaza. So it's important that Evansville draw events to keep those dollars flowing into the community. And as I say, the fact that we held our own in tourism in some rough national times is a positive thing. You would rather it be going up, but holding your own is certainly better than a negative pattern.
Yes, and I guess the inflationary times are a big factor in these decreases that a lot of places have seen.
It really is, and again, according to Explore Evansville, in the first half of the year, average visitor spending in the community was $165, and that's down a little over 6% from last year. So again, in these times, and you see this manifesting itself in all sorts of ways, John. I mean, there's been changing the subject just a bit, but of course here locally, a lot of small businesses are struggling. People are not, they're a little tighter with their discretionary dollars. Right now, they're not spending as much as maybe they would be in more robust times. So businesses are feeling that.
Right. Well, given the fact that we were, as we mentioned, in the path of totality for the solar eclipse, I know there was a lot of anticipation there that would really fill up hotels and have a big bang. Is there any reason to be disappointed with the way things went regarding that event?
So there were pie in the sky, pun not intended,
well,
pie in the sky expectations for that. I don't think that the highest expectations for the eclipse were met, but Evansville still did well. Evansville still did well. They benefited clearly from the event. Hotels, restaurants, for that period, they did well. And unfortunately, fortunately it happened. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that doesn't come around very long. So looking ahead, you look to other events to try to put, as you said earlier, heads in beds.
Sure. And of course, the solar eclipse, it happened here, but it also happened it was seen all across the region. So there were definitely other areas that folks may have gone to as well. Evansville was lucky enough, as you say, to do pretty well, but there were other choices too, as opposed to something just happening in Evansville.
There were. One of the biggest draws was from Nashville. There were a lot of folks here from Nashville. There were a lot of people here from Atlanta, Chicago even. Those were places that were not in totality, but they came here. So clearly we benefited from that. And again, looking ahead to next year and beyond, you got to find other events that bring people into the area.
Yeah, now we'll get into that in a bit here, but it looks like aside from the eclipse, it's sporting events that seem to lead the way in attracting visitors to the Evansville area, correct?
It's a big driver of tourism here, no doubt. The Deaconess Sports Park on the east side is doing very well. The Gable Soccer Complex is also drawing some events, not just soccer. It's called the Gable Soccer Complex, but according to what Explore Evansville says, it's drawn some lacrosse, it's drawn some flag football, and some other types of things. So the news there is good. The folks, the the tournaments that those facilities host do bring visitors who do spend. One thing that Explore Evansville points out, though, is in many cases, and this harkens back to the earlier conversation about people spending less, there are a lot of folks who are coming in for those events who are driving long distances and going back the same day. They're not spending that extra $100 on a room. So that's a little disconcerting. Despite that, though, I mean, Evansville is clearly very reliant on sports tourism. We get a lot of that, and it's a very competitive market. A lot of communities are building fields and wanting to get into that. With that in mind, the Explore Evansville is looking to possibly expand the Deaconess Sports Park in the future, add more fields. They've got some land options there in that area with the idea of adding more fields and trying to remain competitive in that marketplace.
The idea, if you build it, they will come. Right?
Absolutely.
We're speaking with John Martin of Evansville Living. You can see his stories at evansvilleliving.com. This is the Friday Wrap. I'm John Gibson. Well, I noticed in your story, John, that there's some data out there about what the Evansville region's biggest points of interest are. What are those points of interest?
You know, to such a large degree, and there might be some people locally who smirk at this or are surprised by it, but it's Eastland Mall. And the East Side Commercial District continues to drive the economic engine of this region to a huge degree. People love Eastland Mall. They love all the East Side shopping destinations. Beyond that, the larger points of interest are the two hospitals, Ascension St. Vincent and Deaconess, and the universities, and Bally's, and a few other places. But in general, those are the points of interest, which is the term that Explore Evansville uses for out-of-town visitors. And what they are trying to do increasingly is to try to get their claws into people who are coming into the mall or coming into the hospitals and whatnot, and try to lure them to some of the other things that we have here, such as the zoo, such as the LST, such as the other museums that we have. That's an ongoing goal that Explore Evansville has, to try to get those folks to stay longer and experience the city more.
Yeah. Well, there's not another solar eclipse coming, not for centuries, as I understand it.
Not for a while.
Right. So what are tourism officials planning for the coming months? What are some of the goals?
Well, to get back to the sports conversation, obviously we have a lot of college basketball events here. We've had the Ohio Valley Conference for the last several years, the men's and women's championship, and the NCAA Division II National Championship, I think, has one more year here, John, if I'm not mistaken, before it may go away for a bit at least. The big announcement this week was the Missouri Valley Conference Women's Basketball Championship is coming in March 2025. And that's a pretty big get for the city. That has not been here before. Recently, it has been in Moline, Illinois, up in the Quad Cities area.
Right.
Before that, it was in, I believe, St. Charles, Missouri.
Outside of St. Louis.
Right. So it's never been here, and it's all 12 teams. In the OVC, I believe only the top 8 qualify for the tournament. In the Missouri Valley, all 12 teams come. Right. And, of course, in addition to the U of E Aces, you've got a lot of teams in that conference that have local identities. You've got Southern Illinois, Indiana State, Murray State is in the Missouri Valley now. So it should be a really good get for the region. And, of course, the hope is that fans of those institutions will travel here. Explore Evansville estimates that the Missouri Valley Conference Women's Tournament will have about $960,000 in economic impact. So it's a pretty good jolt. And, of course, Evansville has had some success recently in hosting some other MVC championships. The baseball tournament, which the Aces won, was here earlier this year, propelled them on to the great run they had in the NCAA tournament. Cross country has been here, swimming has been here, and softball is coming in a couple of years. So Evansville has done well in luring the Missouri Valley Conference here to the facilities that we have.
Sure. All right. Well, John, anything else to add about the state of tourism that we haven't touched on?
Don't think so, but all of our content is free to read at evansvilleliving.com, and I hope folks will check it out.
Yes, indeed. That is John Martin of Evansville Living. John, as always, we appreciate you joining us, appreciate your time and your insights on these issues.
Good to see you, sir.
All right. Well, coming up on the Friday Wrap here on WNIN, our own Tim Jagalow will join us to talk about something we learned at this week's State of the County address. Tim will be joining us in just a moment on the Friday Wrap on WNIN.
This week on Afterglow, we take a stroll through the Great American Songbook, exploring songs like Would You Like to Take a Walk, I Walk a Little Faster, and Walkin' My Baby Back Home. I'm Mark Chilla, and join me for I Walk with Music, songs about walking. This week on Afterglow.
Over meadow and farm, walking my baby back home. We go along harmonizing a song.
Join us for the annual WNIN Kids Fest on Saturday, September 21st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This free family event features live entertainment, hands-on activities, PBS character meet and greets like Zadie from Workout Wombats, Cat in the Hat, and Clifford, and don't forget every child attending will receive a free book. Come and spend the afternoon with us in downtown Evansville. The WNIN Kids Fest is presented by Centerpoint Energy Foundation. Visit WNIN.org for more information.
Food from Here is back with a new season, and we kick it off in the kitchen of Arcademy in downtown Evansville, where the owners of Turntable are plating up their Thai chicken sliders and smash burgers. I'm Peggy Pirro. Join me for a conversation with Turntable owners Jeff Gott and DeAndre Wilson, and get a bonus update on their Teepee Park Community Kitchen project, Bedford Collab. Food from Here is brought to you by Swerka and More and their intergenerational community kitchen partnership with Young and Established. Support for WNIN comes from listeners like you and from Indiana State Teachers Association, sponsors of PBS Learning Media, which gives educators free curriculum-aligned videos, interactives, lesson plans, and more. Learn more at pbslearningmedia.org. Tucker Publishing Group, whose current issue of Evansville Living features the results of this year's Best of Evansville voting, a plastics factory transformed into a dream home, and a tour of Lawman Tactical. These stories and more in the current issue of Evansville Living.
It's the Friday Wrap on WNIN FM. I'm John Gibson. Good to have you along on this Friday. Well, the Indiana Department of Natural Resources has approved the creation of the Pigeon Creek Watershed Development Commission. As WNIN's Tim Jagalow reported this week, the new volunteer governmental body can begin to fix problems with the watershed.
The Pigeon Creek Watershed extends through all counties, at least in part, surrounding Vanderburgh County. The commission will include 5 members, minimum, focusing on Vanderburgh County. Other counties can join as well. Vanderburgh County Commissioner Cheryl Musgrave attended the meeting, which yielded this approval.
Now there will be the authority to go on to Pigeon Creek and to address the water quality and flooding. Until now, no local governmental unit had that authority. It didn't belong to the city. It didn't belong to the county.
County Commission President Justin Elpers.
With Pigeon Creek, you got the debris that clogs up the creek, obviously, and water can't get away quick enough, so that will alleviate flooding if improved upon. And then also, there's some water quality testing that can occur as well. So.
Musgrave says this approval was made possible under a new state law, and that this is the first commission created under that law. She says attempts to solve flooding on Pigeon Creek go back 100 years. Other problems include an unknown source of high levels of chlorine in the water. For WNIN News, I'm Tim Jagalow.
And Tim joins us live here in the studio now on the Friday Wrap. Tim, as always, thanks for the time.
Hey, John.
All right, well, can you tell us a little bit about this watershed? I understand it has had some problems for a while. Why did it take so long to establish this commission?
Well, it definitely wasn't due to not trying. Cheryl Musgrave said that they basically had to wait for this law to make it possible. This was House Bill 1639, which was passed, I believe, in 2023. There were previous attempts in 2019. She said they tried things like joint drainage boards before that. There were meetings about the pollution in the river, and people brought records of 100 years old showing individuals trying to deal with this flooding. She says that the flooding in this watershed has been a hot topic among drainage professionals for a long time. it's needed,
right?
Because the banks of the river, the banks of the creek, are owned by private people, so nobody has the authority to go in there and do anything, to do any remediation or improvement at all. So that's why this was needed.
I see. Well, who can be, or do we know at this point, who will be on this commission?
The commission itself isn't technically filled yet. The roster's not filled, but the county surveyor is automatically a member, and we know that's Linda Freeman in Vandenberg County. Her drainage plans are in her job description. So she maintains public land survey systems and all the legal drains, and recommends, reviews, and approves drainage plans. So otherwise, there are volunteers, and the law sets out to establish who those can be. So there has to be somebody, the director of the drainage department, if there is one.
Right.
There has to be somebody from the county. And then there needs to be somebody from the city within the county, or the municipality with the most populous municipality that's affected by the watershed. Sure. And that kind of establish who that is. But that we don't know who that's going to be yet.
Right. That's yet to be determined.
Great.
Well, you mentioned authority. Will this commission have any teeth, so to speak?
Right, yeah, that's the whole point. This allows for, and I'm quoting from the law specifically, certain flood damage reduction, drainage, stormwater management, recreation, and water infrastructure purposes, not including drinking water, of course. So, the law requires a flood damage reduction plan, and this board will have exclusive authority to perform drainage and flood damage reduction activities. They can also have interlocal agreements with other governmental bodies that are affected by it to support for funding. And regarding funding, basically there are a few ways, but I think the main way that this will be funded, and I'm going to say this has not been levied yet.
Right.
They haven't done this, but this is kind of how it works when they need to start, when the rubber hits the road. Funding is allowed through a special assessment on parcels. And, the law requires setting a minimum and maximum. Again, that's not enacted yet, and I asked Cheryl Musgrave, Commissioner Musgrave, what that could be, and she gave an example of about $7 annually per parcel, but not set yet.
That has not been set yet.
Right. We don't know who it's. That could be the minimum. That could be the maximum. We're not sure.
Okay.
And funds, of course, according to the law, can't be used outside of that intended purpose. They can't be used for roads, bridges, other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we learned this news at the State of the County address, which you covered this week. Anything else you'd like to add from that meeting?
There's the State of the Counties always highlight a lot of really important projects, and a lot of them are in process, and there's also a lot of updates on the county buildings, like how many weddings were held at the old courthouse, and how many people visited Burdett Park, and improvements to Burdett Park. And those are really big, important. They take a lot of work.
Sure.
But we kind of do hear those annually. And I have a little more details on the web story. I guess for me, a thing that stood out was the fact that this is Cheryl Musgrave's last State of the County.
True.
After more than 10 years as a commissioner, she lost the GOP primary in, what was that, May?
Right. Yes.
May.
Yes, the May primary.
She did not pass that, and she had the most experience by far of any of those commissioners. Both the two commissioners, while experienced public servants, are new on the commission.
Right.
She shared a video. Actually, I shouldn't say she shared. They shared a video highlighting her contributions, her work over the past 10 years, and the main thing was the $170 million for projects that I use the word shepherded in my story, and I'll use that word again, helped to bring to these projects, in which required no tax increases. Most of that was actually not even local tax money used. So, the big ones are the rural broadband network, which is being rolled out now, road improvements, bridges improvements, improved and created new trails, things like that. Yeah. And so maybe more to come about her leaving, and I asked her what she's going to do next, but she's like, my focus now is just to fill the last few months of my term, and maybe we'll find out what's next for her after that.
Yes, indeed. That is WNIN's Tim Jagalow. Tim, as always, we appreciate your contributions.
Thanks, John.
All right, thank you very much. Well, coming up on the Friday Wrap, Jevin Redmond will join us for the Sports Chat, and we also have the Weekend Notebook coming up. Hope you can stay with us on the Friday Wrap here on WNIN. I'm John Gibson.
As a public media fan, you probably are or have been a fan of PBS's Sesame Street at some point in your life. Chances are you know a kid right now who is a fan. Well, this Saturday at Kids Fest, WNIN gives you a chance to win a family fun pack to see Sesame Street live say hello when it comes to the Old National Events Plaza on October 16th. The fun pack includes 4 tickets and 4 meet and greet passes. So while you're at Kids Fest this Saturday, just stop by the WNIN membership booth and get registered for the drawing. See you soon.
This week in This American Life, ever since she was 11, Maj wanted one thing: study abroad in America. She heard from all these older kids, you have to do it.
You're partying every day. You're getting 5 Domino pizza boxes every day.
So she begins school in the U.S. And then a war starts back home. And a normal year of American high school is impossible.
In the mid-1940s, Bud Powell emerged as the leading pianist of the bebop movement, astonishing listeners and his fellow musicians with dazzling, high-speed improvisations of rhythmic and harmonic ingenuity. But the personal troubles that would dog him throughout his career were emerging as well. I'm David Brent Johnson, inviting you to join me and Powell biographer Peter Pullman for Time Flies, The Life and Music of Bud Powell, Part 1, this week on Nightlights.
This is the Friday Wrap on WNIN. I'm John Gibson, and joining me now is WNIN's Jevin Redman for this week's Sports Chat. Jevin, good to see you as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, as I understand it, we're almost to the halfway point of the high school football season now, right?
Yeah, tonight is week 5, and there are 9 weeks of the regular season, and I think we say it every year, but it's true. It goes by so quickly. I mean, it's just one game a week every Friday, and all of a sudden look up and you're at the halfway point. Yeah. So last week there was really quite a few lopsided games in the city. The one game to kind of talk about, though, going in, we anticipated it being a closer matchup, was Memorial and Mater Dei. Both teams are in Class 3A. Mm-hmm. We'll touch on the rankings here shortly, but last week Memorial is number 1 in Class 3A. Mater Dei was 7th. Both teams are undefeated, and Memorial put on an offensive clinic. John, they scored a touchdown on their first 6 drives, and the 7th drive the game ended. So they're basically a perfect 6 for 6. Wow. Their quarterback, Matthew Fisher, was 15 for 18, almost threw for 300 yards, and also 4 touchdowns. So that was the main highlight from last week. Mm-hmm. Memorial looked like the clear number 1 team as they beat Mater Dei at the Bowl.
Gotcha. Well, as you mentioned, this is week 5. Just running down the SIAC games tonight. Undefeated Rights hosts Central. Harrison welcomes unbeaten Memorial. Boise hosts North. Castle entertains Vincennes, and Mater Dei travels to Jasper. So what are the key games you're watching tonight? I think I have a couple of guesses, but you go right ahead.
Yeah, I think the one game that stands out is Mater Dei at Jasper. Mater Dei trying to bounce back after getting beat by Memorial, as I mentioned last week, 41-13. They're 3-1 in the year. Jasper is now 2-2. That game could be intriguing. And then Vincennes is 2-2. I don't know, how strong of a team they are, but they'll get a big test at Castle tonight. So I kind of want to see how they do against a higher opponent in Castle, so I'll keep my eyes on that one. And really, John, there's also 2 games outside of the city that have big importance. They're in the PAC. You have Gibson Southern and Southridge. Both teams are 3-1. And maybe the most intriguing matchup in the area is Heritage Hills at North Posey. It's 2 teams that were state runners-up last year. Right. North Posey in Class 2A, Heritage Hills in Class 3A. So that could be a fun matchup in Posey County.
And I guess we have some new rankings out among the high school teams, right?
We do, yeah. So this is the coaches' poll. We'll start in Class 5A. Castle is 10th. In Class 4A, Wrights is 2nd. In Class 3A, there's quite a few teams that are ranked. Memorial 1st, Heritage Hills 2nd, Gibson Southern 3rd, Mater Dei 8th, and Gibson Southern 12th. I know I touched on this a few weeks ago, but all those teams are in the same sectional, so that'll be fun in a few weeks. And then just finishing out the rankings, North Posey is ranked 3rd in Class 2A, and Forest Park is 12th in Class 1A.
So at some point, we've got to see Wrights play Memorial, correct? And I'm guessing they might still both be undefeated by that time.
That's coming up in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from tonight, they'll meet at Enloe Field. That's the Week 7 battle, and we'll see if they're both still undefeated. But in previous years, they're in the same sectional in Class 4A, so that was kind of like a precursor what we're going to see later in the season, but now just be the only matchup of the year. But still, should be fun and could very well be the game that decides the regular season conference champion.
All right. Any college sports to talk about?
Yeah, so the one thing to mention in volleyball tonight, USI is having their home opener, and they are playing the University of Evansville. That is a 6 o'clock match, and USI and UE actually played on Tuesday of this week at Meeks Family Fieldhouse. USI beat UE in 4 sets. The Aces won the first set, and the Eagles came back and won the next 3. It was a noteworthy win because for USI in their D1 era, which is their 3rd year across all sports, it was their first win in Division I against Evansville. So I know the Screaming Eagles are very excited about that.
No doubt, no doubt. Let's just touch on baseball here for just a little bit. Not looking like any playoff action for the teams in the region here, but we had an amazing showcase last night from Shohei Ohtani. Right?
Yeah, he went 6 for 6, drove in 10 and hit 3 home runs and became the first player to be the 50-50 club, which is 50 or more home runs and 50 or more stolen bases. So this is the guy, too, that is a pretty good pitcher. Of course, hasn't been able to pitch this year because of an injury, but still able to hit. And I was listening to some sports talk yesterday, and they're like, well, will Shohei get 50 home runs with about a week and a half to go? Well, he gets 3 last night.
just like that.
And what an incredible way to do it, to get in the 50-50 club and also have that game. Really something no one's ever done, going 6 for 6. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs.
He's an amazing player. Yeah. Jevin Redmond, as always, thank you so much.
Yep, thanks, John.
It is the Friday wrap on WNIN FM. Coming up, the Weekend Notebook. Hope you can stay with us.
WNIN listeners are civic leaders serving on nonprofit boards and committees, and they're engaged in the community. Hi, I'm Laura Porter, WNIN's Underwriting Account Executive. Learn how your message can reach that valuable audience. Visit WNIN.org, click on the Support tab, and then select Corporate Support. Or email me at lporter@wnin.org.
This week on Afterglow, we take a stroll through the Great American Songbook, exploring songs like Would You Like to Take a Walk, I Walk a Little Faster, and Walkin' My Baby Back Home. I'm Mark Chilla, and join me for I Walk with Music, songs about walking, this week on Afterglow.
Over meadow and farm, walking my baby back home. We go along harmonizing a song.
Join us for the annual WNIN Kids Fest on Saturday, September 21st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This free family event features live entertainment, hands-on activities, PBS character meet and greets like Zadie from Workout Wombats, Cat in the Hat, and Clifford, and don't forget every child attending will receive a free book. Come and spend the afternoon with us in downtown Evansville. The WNIN Kids Fest is presented by Centerpoint Energy Foundation. Visit WNIN.org for more information.
It's the Friday wrap on WNIN FM. I'm John Gibson, and it's time for the Weekend Notebook. Many things happening around the Evansville area this weekend. Let's start with the Cape Culture Fest. It's happening from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. this evening at Main Street Food and Beverage here in downtown Evansville. The event celebrates the many growing cultures in Evansville with food, live music, and more. That's the Cape Culture Fest from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Main Street Food and Beverage behind the Civic Center here in downtown Evansville. A special event coming through the tri-state this weekend, that would be the Flotsam River Circus. Flotsam is a troupe of musicians, circus artists, and puppeteers traveling on a handmade raft performing in riverfront towns along the way. Performances start at 5 p.m. tonight at the Owensboro Riverfront, and then Flotsam moves to Evansville both Saturday and Sunday evening on Dress Plaza here in downtown Evansville. Those performances also begin at 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday on Dress Plaza. And then the troupe moves on to Henderson on Monday. You're urged to bring a blanket or a lawn chair. Come early for a good start. The event is free, although donations are recommended, a $20 donation if you can. Again, that's the Flotsam River Circus, performing tonight in Owensboro, Saturday and Sunday evenings on Dress Plaza here in Evansville, and Monday evening on the Henderson Riverfront. All right, let's move on to tomorrow, Saturday. It's time for the New Harmony Kunstfest in New Harmony. This annual event celebrating German heritage and culture runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in historic New Harmony tomorrow. Again, that's the Kunstfest from 9 to 3 tomorrow, Saturday, in New Harmony. Also, you've probably heard about this one, the WNIN's Kids Fest. It's happening tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here at 2 Main Street in downtown Evansville. The free Kids Fest includes PBS character meet and greets, live performances, inflatables, food trucks, activity booths, and first responders. And we'll also have a free book for every child to take home. That's the WNIN Kids Fest here at the corner of Main Street and Riverside. That's tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Hope you can join us for Kids Fest. Also happening tomorrow here in downtown Evansville, it's Dog Day. It's Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Evansville's Main Street between 2nd and 6th Streets. You're invited to bring your furry, four-legged friend to Main Street. Free activities include adoptions, a dog agility course, a bone bar, a pup cup station, free nail trimmings, pet pampering, ear cleaning, brushing, and a cuddle station. Also, plenty of photo opportunities. That's for Dog Day here in downtown Evansville, happening tomorrow on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Evansville's Main Street. Meanwhile, out at Wesselman Park on Saturday, it's the Pageantry in the Park event. The Shire of Riviere-Constel hosts the annual event, researching and recreating pre-17th century skills, arts, combat, and culture. You'll see armored combat, dancing, and varied arts and crafts. That's at the Pageantry in the Park. That's happening at Wesselman Park on Saturday here in Evansville. Tomorrow evening, we have an event happening in downtown Evansville called Taylor Shines. It's the Laser Spectacular. It's 2 hours of Taylor Swift hits blended with a touring laser spectacular and light show. The show also features large-screen video projections, 3D glasses, and all the mind-bending effects that the Laser Spectacular is famous for. Tickets for Taylor Shines, the Laser Spectacular, range from $17 to $46 here in downtown Evansville. That's at the Old National Events Plaza. Happening at the Victory Theater tomorrow evening, it's the Evansville Philharmonic opening its 90th season. This year's season opening concert features violinist Anne Akiko Myers. Adult tickets start at $30 and can be purchased in advance at evansvillephilharmonic.org or at the door starting 2 hours before tomorrow night's concert. Tickets are free for children. Again, that's the season opener for the Evansville Philharmonic, Saturday at 7 p.m. at the Victory Theater here in downtown Evansville. Moving on to Sunday now, it's the Longest Table 2024. That's an event happening Sunday evening at 4 at the C.K. Newsom Center. Feed Evansville is hosting a free meal for 1,000 local residents as part of its second annual Longest Table. The event invites 1,000 community members to sit down for a family-style free dinner with their neighbors. Attendees are asked to register in advance at feedevansville.com. Again, that's the Longest Table 2024, happening Sunday at 4 p.m. at the C.K. Newsom Center at Walnut and Heidelbach here in downtown Evansville. If you have an event you'd like us to mention on the Weekend Notebook, send it to me, Jay Gibson, that's the letter J, G-I-B-S-O-N, at wnin.org, and we'll try to get your event here on the Weekend Notebook. That will wrap up the Friday Wrap for this Friday. I'd like to thank all of our guests today, including Sarah Lesh of the Evansville Courier and Press. Also a thank you to John Martin of Evansville Living and Evansville Business. Thanks to Tim Jagalow for his reporting this week. Also a big thanks to Jevin Redmond for today's sports chat. Also, Jevin engineered today's show. Thanks again to Jevin Redmond. A big thanks to Mariah Winnie for social media support here at WNIN. Also, thank you to Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations for support for the Friday Wrap. And a big thanks, of course, to you for your support here at WNIN that makes the program possible. I'm John Gibson. Hope you have a great weekend. And for this week's Friday Wrap, that is a wrap.